We are live. Another solo episode today. It has been a whirlwind, but it has been a good one. And we've been backed up, thank God. Ton of podcasts, ton of awesome recordings, ton of fun guests that I've been really working on for a while that all, thank God, looks like they all kind of came to fruition around the same time. And we've had a lot of fun episodes. My last solo episode, I spoke primarily about Disclosure Day, and just a little bit of thoughts on the weird direction that it feels like we're kind of going as a people, as a not necessarily as a nation, as a species. I mean, a lot of weird things are going on around the world, and a lot of it seems to be interplaying with one another. The UFO phenomenon is not an American phenomenon by any means. The Middle East and South America and all over Europe and Russia for sure, China. I mean, you have some really incredible cultural stories and anecdotes and situations in the last couple of years that, uh, yeah, that this isn't an American thing. This is a global thing. A lot of what's cool is that the rate that humanity's kind of exploded, the consequences on any given situation, whether it be a virus, whether it be the internet, whether it be these UFO or alternative energies or forms of communication or whatever it is, because the world is so interconnected, humanity is almost kind of backing itself into a corner and forcing itself to be on one side because we've been knocking down walls. And this kind of goes back to a lot of the points that I've talked about in the past, and I don't really want to get too into right now, but about the different tiers and classes of society, and you have the oppressors and you have the regular people. And this is biblical, this is religious, this is historical, this is everywhere you look in every society. And I mean, it makes sense, checks out, that a lot of times there are class leaders that kind of create a reality for the people that are below them. Whether you want to talk about the Jews in Egypt, or you want to talk about the entire age of colonialism, or whether you want to talk about the soft influence and financial influence empire that's been built by America and China, and however you want to put it, there's always been some variation of a couple of people at the top, a lot of people at the bottom, and sometimes they live fairly and in harmony, and sometimes they live a little bit less so. And so there's been a lot there's been a lot going on, and I'm not trying to get lost in this. I don't want to really make a solo career of podcasting talking about negative things. I really don't. And so, but I'm not going to ignore them either. You want to find a thoughtful and provide and not provocative, but you want to find a thoughtful way to approach this idea and to be proactive, not provocative, proactive, and say, I think a lot of the big issues that go on is people really feel like, what am I supposed to do? I'm just me. I'm just one person. And I think that the answer on a mass social level, which is really cool and really interesting to observe that's going on, is you can choose to opt out of the game. I don't even remember who I was talking to. I think I was talking to the professor of philosophy. The episode will be dropping next week. I hope I have episodes scheduled and ready to book through July 8th, maybe even beyond that. So keep your eyes open for that. Um, but, we were talking about, gosh, I don't even remember what I was saying. I have to keep on going. Um, One of the themes that consistently happens in these quote unquote class wars or humanitarian wars, this idea of an oppressed and an oppressor, is not. Oh, right. Now I remember what I was saying. Okay, you don't have to cut that. What I was saying is that when I was talking to this professor of philosophy at that university, we were talking about the fact that everyone is dealt a hand that they are given to be able to play the game of life with. And the game of life is not one game. It's more like a playground that you can kind of walk around and pick what game you want to choose to engage in. And we have society and societal pressures which push down on us, which weigh on us, which, if we are not thoughtful and vigilant, steer us along the way. There's entire infrastructures in place that are really meant to basically keep people. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when you go to the airport and you have that walking sidewalk where you kind of stand on it and you kind of keep on going through the airport, and you don't really have to exert any effort. And if you're late for your flight, you might want to move, but like if you're taking your time, it's cool and it's fun, and you might get you might get on and start over again. And all this is pretty anecdotal for the way that society kind of pushes us through life, where we have these variety of systems. And one thing that's happened to me since I've become a father, and especially particularly since I have been working from home, starting the podcast, and keeping up my bills and developing as a salesperson and as a businessman in the world, is I don't have to do anything on almost anyone's time. Yeah, I gotta answer. I gotta be around when generally people are up and doing business. I generally have to be around when people answer the phone, but you can be plenty productive on your own time, on your own schedule. And there's nothing that says that, for me at least, and I think that this is becoming more and more the case in society as jobs and as opportunities move online more and more. And whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, whether you should choose to into it or opt out of it is another question. I think that everyone could kind of think about it. But I know for myself, for example, it's really bad for me to be home all the time. It's one of the reasons why I was teaching. Yeah, it's one of the, one of the side reasons, but a very good additional incentive or motivator for me to teach was, aside from the fact that I love it, it gets me out of the house, 5 days a week, 4 days a week for 4 hours a day. And I'm interacting with minimum, 75 to 100 people outside of outside of my family that lives with me. Um, it's really good. It's really, really healthy, and it's really good to do. So I'm not saying that you should, but I think that what people are realizing is that there's been a system that you can choose to play a game in society, and society will generally reward you for it. And that's a good thing. And this game that we were playing includes getting an education and going to college and starting your career at a certain point and then slowly learning. And then with that time, you have this slow kind of learning curve, but you also have this consistent secure structure where you're not going to get fired, that you're getting a monthly payment, and so there's generally lower risk and it's a little bit lower return, but like you could still make your way up through the world. You can eventually get a mortgage, and you could eventually save up enough for a down payment, and eventually and you could save up to go on vacation like once or twice a year with your family, take your kids somewhere cool. And so for a long time, for generations, in America in particular, that was a system that people were really happy to go by. So we didn't have to take anything outside the system whenever this system told us something about reality, the nature of reality or our lives, like, um, you know, the way that you could feel about pharmaceuticals, or the way that you can feel about food, or the way that you can feel about exercise, or the way that you feel about the people's relationship with their representatives in politics and government. There was never really any reason to kind of say, this doesn't work. Why should we trust you? Why should we believe you? Because it was working for everyone. And then at a certain point, I would say in the mid 2000s, it kind of stopped working for everyone, or mid 2010s rather. And then it really stopped working for everyone around 2020. And that was crazy to say 6 years ago. And so in the last 6 years, or 8 years, or 10 years, or 15 years, depending on how far back you want to take this scale, you you have a whole generation of people that have been able to offer, for regular Americans and regular people, an alternative lifestyle to what this, lack of a better word, factory of America was offering. So America, imagine, was a factory, and it offered you something in return for essentially your life, which was, hey, give us your 9 to 5, give us your 9 to 7. If they convince you that, whatever company could convince you or tell you that we'll give you X amount more money because you're working a little bit more, a little bit harder, or take out X, Y, and Z student loans in order to get this education. And why should I not go to the library and read this book? Because no, 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 no. We have really much better people here that they read all the books. They go to the library, but you can't learn that on your own. You need them to show you. And so we were able. So for a long time, people said, well, the trade off is I get a family. The trade off is I get a house. The trade off is I get to move to the suburbs and I get to take my kids on vacation and I get to retire at 65 years old. And so, and then I get to really, and then I get checks and payments coming to me for the rest of my life because I've invested into my future along the way. And now I'm getting my dividends on that. And that's really, really amazing until that stopped being an option for people. And then you have people that are working now, and you could be a nurse or you could be an engineer, you could be a professor, you could be whatever. It doesn't make a difference whether you're blue collar or white collar. The point is that in order to go through the system, you're never going to get out on top anymore. And so now there's an alternative world of self starters, of business people. And what's interesting is that the self starters and the business people, they've noticed that what the real value in today's world is. It's not a coincidence, I don't think, in America that if you ask most that apparently if you ask most kids, and I could try to pull up where I read this, but I've read a bunch of different studies and heard this quoted a bunch by professionals. The notion that if the notion that eyeballs are the most valuable currency in today's world, and that most kids will say if you ask them, hey, what do you want to do if you can do anything? And a lot of kids say influencer. A lot of the reason why is because we've placed so much societal value on turning yourself into a brand, whether you're an Instagram account or you're a YouTuber or you're someone that does marketing or whatever it may be. Everyone needs social media. Everyone needs to have a face to their company. Everyone needs to have a face to the organization. Everyone, America, Trump is like the face of America. And then he wasn't. And then he was. And then he wasn't. And keeps on going back and forth. And, and like, yeah, but and it doesn't even have to be politicians, right? Like LeBron could be the face of America to a lot of people. Justin Gaethje, after this White House fight, is the face of America to a lot of people. But the point is that he's an individual and and you see about him and you hear about him and all his impressions and all his views and most of the traffic and most of the value and most of the time that's the content that's consumed about these people is being done about them in a social media landscape, in a social media world. And so it's not surprising to me that people are like, why, if the value, if that the kids are like that the younger generation or the generation, even my generation, right? I think that I think my generation and the 30, 35-year-olds and younger have realized, and the ones that are a little older that are a little bit more savvy have realized this as well. But the 35 and under group, we could call them, they've realized that why would I be a nurse or a doctor when I can make way more money going on YouTube? and like, and if that's what our society is going to reward, then that's just, then who can blame the consequences of the people that are going to be the most rewarded or the people that are the best at making everything about themselves? I hope I'm not doing that. I'm making this partially about myself, I suppose. Um, But yeah, even me, it kills me and it drives me nuts. I have to post on social media every single day and I hate it. And I have to and I post on Instagram and I post on YouTube and I post podcast episodes 3 times a week for the last, almost 3 years now. Just about 3 years coming up. It's crazy. And and I have to work very consciously, and most of my life is not about me, so I'm happy about that. And most of my life is about something bigger, a community, a family, a group of friends, an existence that is not just revolving around a branding of Ephraim Hirschman. I think that's really important. Um, I don't even know how I got into this. Yeah, so that's an observation about people wonder why the world looks the way it does today. People wonder why, what are we doing about this? I mean, you can kind of trace back that, number one, going through the organic system of the way of yesteryear, of 50 years ago, of 25 years ago, is not a system that's really viable for anyone anymore. And that game instead has been replaced with data. That game has been instead replaced with social media and with attention equal, that with attention being synonymous with value and currency and money. That's crazy. It's really crazy. And that's how you get a lot of attention seeking people. So I'm not going to I'm going to keep on going. I just have to edit that bit out. So anyway, I don't remember how I got on that, but so when people want to know, well, just like, what can I do? I think the answer is you have to choose to opt to play your own game of life. And I think that the opportunities in the table is being laid, the table is being set for us to be able to choose something different, something new. It's really cool. You can play your own game. You could do your own hustle. Most of the guys that I go to jujitsu with, for example, they're on their own schedule, and that's the reason why they go to a gym at 4:30 in the afternoon, and they hustle, and they have their own business part-time, and they work part-time in something else. They might not have it all figured out at 25, at 28, at 30, but they have an enormous amount of autonomy over their lives. They choose what they're doing for their job instead of work, and they choose the way that they get to spend their time and the way that they get to invest themselves. And money is only, I think that there's two perceptions of the way that you're supposed to live life. You have a career, and your life revolves around that. And then there's people that say, I don't need a career. I just need enough money to be able to have a home and some food and whatever else I need. And so however I can figure out to make that money work, then I could do whatever else I want to do in my life. And in America, we worship the career. We love the career. The career is impressive. The career is, he's been at this institution forever and he spent 40 years doing this and that. And there's a lot of people that are, hey, I spent 5 years doing this and I tried that out for a little bit and I was hustling to make ends meet over there. And in the meantime, what'd you do? In the meantime, I became a jujitsu black belt and I have a family and I have kids and I had this little shop that I opened up for a little bit on the side. And it was a ton of fun. We had great stories and friends and everyone used to drop by and we had all these cool experiences. You can have that and you could create that. And it's actually more accessible now than it's ever been because you can go, I mean, on one hand, financial loans are really hard to come by. On the other hand, the tools that we have that aren't just plain old cash are incredible. It's pretty easy to get access to AI. It's pretty easy to have AI help you with legal documents, which is crazy. Talking about this now, I switched over just from using an AdWords company who I was paying over $800 a month for them to really do not much except for answer one of my except for answer my emails on a monthly basis a day or two late, schedule a phone call, tell me what is working, what isn't working, not tell me why when nothing's not working. They couldn't tell me why it wasn't working, just that it wasn't. And I just I for $80 a month instead, I pay Rise.ai, RYZE.ai, and it's not a paid promotion. It's awesome. And I mean, I've been using it for a couple of weeks and we'll see how it goes. It's essentially a chatbot, but this chatbot is responsive. This chatbot can do way more work than what this company has been doing. It could speak my language in a way that the guy that was my ad manager was not able to effectively communicate with me in any kind of reasonable way. And that's incredible. That's $80 a month. So something that went from literally, it's 10 times the cost, and it's a fraction of the cost. To get a person to do that, a company to do that, costs 10 times more than to have an AI, which is exponentially a better experience. Crazy, crazy. And so we can do these things. We can do them. It's out there for us. It's available for us. My friend Chris, friend of the show, been on the podcast, my jujitsu teacher a couple times a week. Um, he he is incredible about kind of just playing around with tech and taking his life into his own hands and pursuing the things that are meaningful for him. When he needs to work, he has a, the way that he works is he has a career, and he has his profession, but he primarily focuses on the things that he likes, and he uses tech to help with his schedule, to help with his work, to help optimize a lot of the different processes in his life that he otherwise would have been tied up with. And it really does create more freedom. The opportunities for freedom are really here. It's just that we have to get used to being able to use it. And we have to get, and, it's funny because I want to kind of go through some of the episodes that I've recently recorded. Because again, I do these solo episodes after every 5 guests, I do a solo episode, and I'll do a little bit of a recap, and I'll talk about some things that are on my mind. But I was talking to Tom Hamilton, who is so cool. He's the lead guitar player for Joe Russo's Almost Dead, the premier Grateful Dead cover band since Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead died and the band broke up. I would argue they've been better than Dead and Company for the better part of a couple of decades, in my opinion. But um, that's just my thoughts. But he's also with yeah, he's got a long musical history. He apparently was a bass player for Aerosmith, and he was part of a couple of past called Brothers Past. You can Ghostlight, but he and I were talking about AI, and he's got a classic rock and roll screw the man attitude, in a really fun way. I really really liked it, and I really, really enjoyed hanging out and talking to him. And one thing that we are talking about was AI and the fact he's like, well, AI is obviously there to make people dumber. It's like there are good things that you can use it for. You can use it for medical, you can use it for, I'm not saying it's all bad, but the way that people are generally consuming it is generally making him dumber. And it's such an interesting point because this tool really can provide so much freedom if you're creative with it and disciplined. And if not, it can really, really cause an enormous amount of atrophy, especially cognitive and mental atrophy, really, really quickly. It's nuts. So we have these tools, and it's so funny because these biblical comparisons never stop. And that's probably because, it's the truth. It's, you have and what we say about God was, or about, about Pharaoh in the Jews, when the Jews were slaves in Egypt, was that he kept us so busy working so hard we couldn't pay attention to the fact that we weren't free. And yeah, we're so busy worried about our career. We're so busy worried about these tangibles. It's so funny because we're chasing the things that are tangible. We chase the things that are right in front of us when the things that are really valuable are not tangible. And AI could do that. And what's funny is that at the when I think that this upper class of society began to realize that tech was really enabling a lot more freedom amongst people, we immediately got introduced. And not to say we don't need jobs the same way, but a lot of jobs could be automated right now that people are doing. And a lot of people are working in jobs right now that they know are probably not going to last very long because of the fact that something is going to be able to come and take over their role and do it for a lot cheaper and a lot more effectively, like my ad company, like my AdWords guys. And they got and just as that technological spike was happening, we got introduced to social media, which just keeps people sucked onto their screens. So basically, society went from keeping yourself busy your whole life with your career to being busy your whole life with social media, but you're still busy with your whole life. There's some kind of inorganic rot that is that just seems to grasp onto humanity, grasp onto our attention, grasp onto people, and prevent us from communicating with one another, from interacting with one another. I'm sitting here in my house, staring at my computer screen, talking on a podcast about the fact that this is crazy. And I mean, and the truth is that ideally I would like to be sitting with someone and across from someone. And if I could, if I was in the position to, and I could meet with every single guest in person, and I could be out every day with people, I would be. I'm working on it. I'm trying to make that happen. And what's crazy is that in order to be able to get to this world where I'm free of social media, I have to navigate my way through it. And in order to get through this world where I can just learn and just participate and observe and just, and just really, like, all I enjoy doing is soaking in and in the thoughts and conversations and ideas of other people and see how it affects my how it influences my life and my perspective and my outlook. And I find that so much fun, and that's something I really value. If I could do that, and I could do that and share that, I could do that and help expose people to that same thing, that'd be incredible. That's the goal. In order to get there, I have to go through like this selfish route of like having to make everything about me on my podcast for for X amount of years until it works out. So the whole game is very, very confusing to me. But that has actually, so that actually brings me to, some other ideas and some other thoughts that have been going on. And one of them is that I'm pretty positive that I'm going to take a step back from teaching this next year. I hope to go back to it in the future. But I think for this past year, I'm going to take a break. And one of the main reasons why is because I haven't had the time to really keep myself calibrated on what my values and what my goals are. And I was drowning myself in projects without being present in those projects and moments in my life. Anyway, some housekeeping on recent books that and stuff that I've read that I think are cool. Prisoner in Chief by Stephen Kinzer, about Sidney Gottlieb. If you haven't heard of him, the chief architect behind the MK Ultra program. Really interesting dude, really interesting story about unfortunately horrible, but really, really mind-opening and crazy biogenetics, biocrimes, biowarfare that the government, the CIA, has participated in, particularly right after World War II, where they took the world's leading villains in biowarfare from the Nazis and from the Japanese and brought them to America. Didn't necessarily treat them as the people that they were, but kind of just took them and implemented them into this program, into American establishment, into the American intelligence, into warfare. And they just took these people without these morals or values, and yeah, they had no qualms about it, which is pretty crazy. That's the other thing about when you kind of have to look when you're looking at everyone like they're an enemy. It makes you act like an enemy to everyone else. And not everyone is an enemy. I mean, listen, if you want to say Russia's an enemy, okay, Russia's an enemy. Want to say China's an enemy, China's an enemy. America, the homeland, I don't know, whatever. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I think that I'm a little bit more sympathetic to the idea that this is totally not acceptable and that our government should not be doing, or no governments should be doing anything like this. This is just, I mean, bio warfare is truly nuts in like any kind of way that you can imagine that sounds as preposterous science fiction as you could imagine, whether it be mass exposure to a city of toxins or enormous amount of different types of soft, or I guess hard, but soft influence, exposure to music, exposure to constant, to germs, exposure to bacteria, exposure to anything that could really alter the mind and the state and our own perception of reality and time is all up in is all fair game in this account. So freaks the heck out of me, but I think it's important to read about. On a slightly less negative note, How the Hippies Saved Physics by David Kaiser, who I just actually recorded yesterday with. He and I recorded a podcast for almost 2 hours. It was an excellent, excellent guest. We're posting that episode a week from tomorrow, a week from Wednesday. I guess, so in the Wednesday, the first week of June. I have no idea what day that is off the top of my head. And yeah, that has been that those two books have really been eating a lot of my time. I have a book that I've gotten from How the Hippie Saved Physics called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn, which I'm excited about. Got in the library. Thank you to my sister-in-law, Esther. and she got me both these books actually. And I just watched Arrival, which I loved. It felt like a Christopher Nolan type movie. Amy Adams, I know this movie's 10 years old. It's fine. Amy Adams is so incredible. Such a great actress, whatever you want to call her. She's amazing. And yeah, that movie was really, really, really well done. It was beautifully shot. It was tense the whole time. It was palpable, very palpable tension. It was thought provoking. It felt religious. It felt religious. It's very cool. What's incredible about all this, whatever you want to call, because it's not just UFOs and aliens, whatever you want to call these alternative experiences and alternative narratives of the more spiritual realm, as you want to call it, or the a little bit like the things beyond what we have the ability to measure with our with with the tools that we have available right now. It's it could be approached from all sorts of different angles. It could be approached as a spiritual thing. It could be approached as an extraterrestrial thing. It could be approached as a time traveling thing. It could be approached as always been here, and we have very little ability to be able to control reality. Like we're so subject to our perception of things that we can't even experience them on a regular basis. And it's not that they're new or different; it's that they've been here the whole time, and just our ability to perceive them fluctuates. It could be some of this, all of this. I don't think it's none of this. I don't think it's all made up. I don't think it's all BS. There's too many stories. There's too many things in common with ancient religions, biblical literature, modern history, all these crazy accounts. And what we're kind of getting at, what seems cool, is that there seems to be a way to have like one particular impact that you want, and a lot of different ways to approach it. Um, I don't know what any of this means, and I don't know that we will. The more that I keep on hearing people talk confidently about it, the less I'm sure of what's going on, because everyone seems very confident and everyone's saying different things. I don't know how people like Jesse Michaels or Danny Jones wrap their head around this stuff unless they kind of just pick things up and put them down, and pick things up, put them down. And when you do enough podcasts and you're exposed to enough ideas, you don't get as overwhelmed by that. That's totally possible too. Um, yeah, Arrival, and then what was that movie that I started? So last bit of this episode is going to be just a quick run through of the most recent 5 guests and what we've discussed. Um, Quickly, Dr. Amna Kirmani, who is the head of marketing at University of Maryland's Business School. Dr. David Gall, also marketer out of, hang on, I'll tell you where he's University of Illinois, Chicago, and he's the head of the marketing department at that university. We had a fun conversation. They're actually back to back with Amna Kirmani and David Gall back to back. They have different perceptions of the way that marketing has an impact on us, so it would be cool to check that out. Both they're not very long, 2 hours between the two of them, so not that much time. But you get a pretty good idea as to the different perspectives as to what marketing is capable of doing to us, or way of impacting us, or subjecting us through exposure to try to drive our behavior. Then you have Tom Hamilton, who I mentioned earlier, the Grateful Dead guitar player. Freaking awesome. Very cool guy. A lot of fun. We have my friend Adam Friedman, second time on the show, Israeli American photographer, and really, really, really cool guy. He's a musician. He's a photographer. He's just an artist. He lives his life like an artist, and we have a lot of fun every time we talk. This episode primarily revolved around Disclosure Day and the Spielberg movie and what our thoughts were on it. And then finally, Heather Spence, who I posted about a bunch on Instagram, but she is a marine biologist and is a musician and composer. And again, her fields intersect in a really cool way because water and acoustics have a totally different relationship through the medium of water and oceanography than it does on land, than music does, than sounds do on land. So her research studying, I guess, the vibrations or the technical aspect of the acoustic aspect of music also helps her in her research. She researches a lot of really cool things, including energy that could be converted into space travel because they have similar challenges on the navigating through ocean as we would hypothetically through space. She deals with dolphins and communication and little snapping shrimp, which you should listen to the episode, hear her talk about because they're really, really incredible. And it's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. She was, I would check out her research if anything she does is interesting because she deep dives into each of the intersections of her research. So she deep dives into behavior, she deep dives into energy, she deep dives into animal marine mammal relationships with people. She deep dives into music. It's really, really incredible. Check out so those are the last 5 episodes. Today is solo episode, and then we have the next 4 all scheduled ready for you guys for the next week and a half. Hope you have a lot of fun. As always, reach out with any feedback and hope to see you all soon.